everybody. Welcome to the InPsight Show. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. Happy July! Are you boiling yet? Are you baking in this heat? Woo! We are boiling up here in Montana. Yesterday, it was projected to hit 103 degrees, and my Jeep, which had been parked out in the shade all day, showed 111 degrees when I got in it to start rolling down the road. So, yeah, it's been a little toasty. And I hope it cools down just a little bit because we have our big event at the end of this month. I'm so excited. And that is our Ultimate Montana Mystery Adventure that's going on the 26th through the 28th. We have folks coming in from California and from Arizona. It's going to be so much fun. We are going to have such a blast. As a matter of fact, Melissa and I were just planning meals just like 2 seconds before I hopped on this podcast. And if you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, you can go to mystery-quest.com and check out our big immersive Ultimate Montana Mystery Adventure. It's this all-inclusive adventure. It's going to be amazing, where basically all you got to do is get yourself to Bridger, Montana, because the rate that you pay includes all of the excursions, includes breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all the snacks, a cowboy bar for those that participate, lots of non-alcoholic drinks for folks, and just, goodies, campfire goodies, things to roast and marshmallows, weenies, whatever, man, whatever your deal is. If you're going to roast a frog, you have to catch it yourself. I'm not going to do that. But just, all this fun. And this literally took 2 years to plan, this adventure. And we finally got it together, and we've got a great group of people. It's going to be phenomenal. So we're excited. We're excited to have everybody coming in at the end of the month. So yay. So anyway, I'm getting on with our podcast here. I just had to mention that because not only is it at the end of this month, but now I've got this mouth water going because Melissa and I were planning meals, and they're really good. So I'm excited about that. I'm Italian. It's got to be about the food, man. Not only are we taking you out to look at UFOs at night and go seek elementals and show you ancient alien rock art and find fossils, but by God, the food better be good. That's all I'm saying. Well, guys, I tell you what, I'm doing this podcast because so many of you asked me to. And I hopefully I'll just need to do one of these for a while, just so we can get people to calm the heck down and get everybody to pull a deep breath in. And, it's really about the 2025 debacle and poor Biden at this last debate. And I know there are those of you out there that believe that Donald Trump is innocent. So all of these things going on with the Supreme Court, there are lots of you out there that believe he's guilty. We're just in a really crazy time, right? And I've been getting so many requests for this podcast that I'm just going to knock it out, get her done. Got the angel who walks with the world here, so everybody knows what's going on with this bizarre authoritarian movement that's trying to flex its fist worldwide. What the hell is that about? What is going on worldwide with this authoritarian movement? Guys, whenever we come to the end of an era, whatever dynasty is being replaced flexes its fist, it flexes its arms, it flexes its power, or it tries to. And for a very long time, of course, in the world, we've had a conquest model, right? Spiritually, energetically, psychologically, socially, we've had the conquest model. And a strong, I guess I should say, a more bully culture comes in, not necessarily a stronger culture, but a culture that can bully the culture that's pre-existing and dominates it and pushes it out. And that this has been the world up to this point, you guys, which is really weird. I think it's really weird because we have so much going on in this world that the idea that people would still be flexing this manifest destiny conquest model, this my way or the highway model, I'm really a little on the shocked side that folks are still trying to push this. However, we just had this big election over in France, and there was that gal who was super, super conservative who was running against Macron. And to my knowledge, she lost. And France's elections are a little wiggly and strange. They kind of work in a weird way over there. But she didn't win. And so the worldwide authoritarian, freak out outreach is all crying. They cheated because this modality of authoritarianism, it's an epidemic right now. And it's not just in the United States, it's all over. We've got it obviously in Russia. Look at Putin in Ukraine. We've got it over here all over the world. China is communist China, although they do have a pretty hardcore way of doing things. It's their way or the highway over there. And I'm a little hesitant to call China authoritarian. I think that's a little much. However, there's not a lot of room for debate over there. So one could argue that the way they do things is pretty totalitarian. Then you've got, of course, North Korea, and you've got these movements like this lady in Italy who won, and she was a big follower of the brown shirts, which is Mussolini and the whole Nazi movement. And I believe she's in power currently. Now, leave it to Italy, though. They'll get tired of her in like 5 minutes. They'll bounce her out of there. But for now, she won that election a while back. And then, of course, you got the United States and old Donald Trump, who is just quite honestly, if I'm to look at it psychically, just really wants to stay out of jail. So he's trying to be president so he can pardon himself. That's really what this whole thing is about. That and his unyielding ego. Plus, he raises a ton of money when he's president, you guys. He makes so much money. And all of the other political regulations that apply to everybody else seemed to get turned away when it comes to Donald Trump. I mean, he takes this money and just spends it on whatever. And there's never any repercussion for him. And I think part of that is that this whole entire political system is pretty jacked up. I think we can agree at this point. But I wanted to take a look at this spiritually because I've got a lot of folks, especially folks who are on the blue side of things, liberal side of things, who are just wringing their hands over this last Biden debate. And I actually didn't watch the debate, you guys. I was on my Patreon group, so I had an event that night with my monthly Patreon folks where we meet every month and we talk about the state of the world and what's going on. And so I did not see that particular debate. However, while I'm on my Zoom meeting with these wonderful gals, for God's sakes, you guys, I've got my phone is just exploding with people going, "Are you watching this? It's a shit show. What a train wreck. Oh my God, this is horrible." And I'm thinking to myself, why no, I'm not watching it, but I get the gist. It's not great for Biden. Guys, one of the things we could go on and on about Joe Biden and should he be president or not, and we could go on and on about Donald Trump and is he a crazy liar and blah. But there's a bigger issue here, okay? And the bigger issue is Project 2025 and the fact that the folks that have put Project 2025 together have been trying to put Project 2025 together for years. They could have called it Project 1963 or 1969 or 1972. I mean, these folks have just been attempting to throw this Christian white nationalism at the wall as long as we have passed the Equal Rights Amendment. I mean, as long as Black people had the right to marry white people and the right to vote, this group came out of the woodwork and has been trying to pass a version of Project 2025 ever since, you guys. So do know that this is not just some new little thing that popped up with Trump. Trump just took advantage of it because, you guys, the one thing that Donald Trump is extraordinary at, I mean, the guy needs to win an Oscar for it. I have to say, there is an art to it and he has it down and he's a maestro, is the con. He is a phenomenal con man, guys. And I don't agree with his cons, but by God, you got to give the guy he's a freaking artist, okay? If he weren't Donald Trump, George Clooney would be playing him, and he'd be this slightly lovable character who got away with everything because he could pull one over on all the people. I mean, he's Harold Hill from The Music Man, only run through a very sociopathic and narcissistic filter there. So, I mean, big time con man, and he's great at it. So, of course, Donald Trump is doing what he does, which is find the window for the grift, for the con. And in this case, the grift is writing Project 2025. And Guys, I'm sure most of us have seen it. It's almost this 1,000-page manifesto that goes on and on and on and basically wants to set the United States back where, women don't have rights and gays don't have rights and gay people can't get married and black people don't have rights and any people of any color besides white don't have rights. People who aren't Christian don't have rights. Pretty much white Christian men have rights. That's what this Project 2025 says. And all the people in law enforcement and law and judges get replaced with Christian judges, and we basically are into Handmaid's Tale stuff, right? I mean, Margaret Atwood, you guys, got the idea for her book from things that were happening during her time. And I believe Handmaid's Tale, what that was written in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. That's Roe v. Wade and all this other stuff. So this movement has been around for a long time. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be startled by it, and I'm not saying you shouldn't pay attention to it. I'm just saying don't give all this credit to Donald the con man Trump because he didn't author this. It was the Heritage Foundation who kind of saddled up to him, and Donald Trump will say anything for a buck, you guys. Honest to God. Honest to God. If he literally realized that saying that I love Vladimir Putin would make him $3 million in a shot, he'd say it. It wouldn't matter. He's out for the money. He's out for the grift. It's just who he is. So when I look at all of this, I'm so fascinated to see that some people are just so highly unaware that this group of people has been seething ever since Black people got equal rights back in the 60s, and it's embarrassing that it took to the 1960s, which weren't that long ago, for Black people to have those rights. It's disgusting. To have any people of color be oppressed like that is just mind-boggling because most of us were born into a very liberal United States of America in the 70s or late 60s. A lot of us were anyway. So if you're out there and you're hand-wringing about Biden's performance or, the Democrats, and I'm just out of transparency, guys, I tend to be a blue voter, okay? And I don't hate Republicans. I do not. I feel sorry for my Republican friends and my Republican family because they're kind of folks without a party right now. A lot of my friends and family who are Republican are kind of freaked out that this MAGA thing has taken over and this whole authoritarian thing and totalitarian Christian thing has moved just being a fiscal conservative to the back plate. They're freaked out. They're like a bunch of people without a party, and a lot of them are rolling libertarian. I know a lot of Republicans who are voting for Kennedy this time around just because they're so wigged out by what's going on. I mean, I know lots of Republican women who have had abortions. So the idea that they can't get an abortion is sort of freaking them out too. I mean, guys, I've said this since 2017 and 2016 that this very extremist brand of republicanism is not conservatism. It is Christian nationalism, and it's something very different. It really is. So I've been saying the same thing for years and years and years, and I think we're now seeing the divide in those who do consider themselves conservative and those who consider themselves just full tilt extremists, way out there people. There's a big rift there. So when we talk about the spirituality or the sociology of Project 2025, here's what I think is a little bit hilarious about this, okay? Now consider that the architects of Project 2025 have pretty much been working on that since before they passed the Equal Rights Amendment. And I'm talking, and the Civil Rights Amendment. So this is something that was going down in the late 1950s and early 60s because they knew that Kennedy was going to run. They knew what Kennedy's platform was going to be. There was Martin Luther King who was stomping around for equal rights out there. There was a lot going around. And so they were preparing for this before any of this was signed into law. And they were getting this, they were already offended. And really what drove them home, what drove the baseball of hatred over the back wall was Barack Obama. We have this amazing black man who's awesome, who everybody loved except for a handful of people, who was the president. And that flipped them right out. They realized they had lost control of the narrative. So what we're seeing right now is a knee-jerk response to the 1963 passing and 1962 positing of the civil rights movement, and of course also the equal rights movement that came a little later in the early 70s for women. So all of this has been going on for a long time. Now here's why I think this is hilarious. I think it's hilarious because they finally have the con man without a conscience who will get up there and say anything for $5. That's Donald Trump. God bless him, man. He is consistent. He will say anything for $5. He will put out a Trump Bible with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution just published in it, and the words to, what was it, the national anthem or God Bless America or both, or just some god-awful thing. Who even knows? And sell these Bibles. I mean, he is Harold Hill from hell. Okay? It's so funny. I know it's not funny. It's horrible, but it really is funny if you take a few steps back and look at it. So here is this group who's been pushing so hard for 60 years to get their agenda through. Now they finally got a shot with Trump. They've got this front guy who could care less what the message is as long as he's making his nickels. Just straight out. Okay? Now, the irony here is that Trump is saying, oh, Project 2025, read about it on my website. He is, again, in the middle of the con and plans on ditching the con the second the con isn't making him money. He just picks up whatever con is going to make him $5. Now, you got all these people who are seriously, I laugh because you guys, I don't know what else to do. And honestly, when I look at it psychically, and that's exactly what we're doing today, we're looking at all of these current events through the psychic ethers. And when I look at it psychically, I can't help but crack up. And I know that makes a lot of people angry because there's a lot of people who understand the gravity of this situation and how awful it is. Yet let me tell you why I can't help but crack up. I'm literally looking in on the spirituality and the emotionality of this group of people. And there's about 8 of them, and there's a bunch of them that just hide in the background. And they whisper to other world leaders, and they're just the little Iagos that just try to stir the pot. And the current president of the Heritage Foundation is Kevin Roberts. And I mean, you look at the guy and he's just interesting. He's just got this kind of steely glare and he looks like somebody's dad and it's just odd. But when I look at this group, you guys, and other groups worldwide like it, what I see are people that are so indoctrinated into their own belief system, you guys, that they literally cannot get outside of their own beliefs. They just can't. As a matter of fact, they don't see why their plan won't work. Because they've made a little bit of headway. Pendulums always swing right and left. They've made a bit of headway with the con man Trump, and Trump just shoved all these justices through in the Supreme Court, as we all know. And old Amy Coney Barrett, boy, she's going to give them a run for their money, though. She did vote with these justices on this last give Donald Trump immunity thing, which is a travesty. And somebody's finally going to figure out that that's anti-Constitution and disbar some of these people, but we haven't gotten there yet. AOC is trying to impeach the justices, which is fine. But really, I mean, they vowed to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and they just passed a law that gave one human being, the President of the United States, immunity while he's under official capacities, which means that he can do whatever he wants and claim it was a presidential action. And it's really hard to prove that something is not a presidential action. I mean, obviously, if it was something severe, like robbing a bank or whatever, maybe you could prove that wasn't a presidential action. However, Amy Coney Barrett was a little disturbed that Clarence Thomas, who, by the way, this is a prediction that is coming true. I was predicting on Clarence Thomas last year and the beginning part of this year about how, he's going to run into trouble. He is going to run into great big trouble. And he already is, with his money and gifts that he's taken. And obviously, he's a pretty darn corrupt judge. And, this isn't the only time that justices have been impeached. They've been impeached before in the 60s. And so, there was a justice that was impeached and removed in the 1800s and then reappointed. So this isn't the first time a justice has been impeached, although it's rare. However, if someone in the law looks at the fact that they swore an oath to uphold the Constitution and then just passed a law that said, oh, hey, by the way, one guy can be above the law, that defies what the Constitution defines as the role of president, because basically it very clearly says not one person is above the law. I'm paraphrasing, but go read it. That's what it says. So if you're now passing a law that says, sure, this one person is not subject to the law, that defies the Constitution, which breaks their oath. And if you break your oath as a justice, that's actually room for disbarment. So I'm just waiting for somebody to figure that one out and go back to their home states. And if they're disbarred, they certainly cannot be a Supreme Court justice. But old Amy Coney Barrett, man, I'll give her some credit. She's not my favorite justice, but she got in there and was complaining to high heavens about the fact that this Alito and Clarence Thomas wanted to give Donald Trump all this immunity. She's like, guys, this is dangerous. We can't be doing it. She ultimately voted with them. But it is interesting that she complained so much about it. So I do find all of that super fascinating because as I look at this group, the Heritage Foundation, Psychically, and other groups around the world that are much like them, guys, they are so out of step with what's actually going on in the sociological and spiritual climate of not only the United States, but the rest of the world. I mean, this woman just lost to Macron again in France because she's so extreme. And of course, all the extremists over there said, oh, they cheated, which I think is, again, absolutely hilarious that narrative is now spreading from MAGA across the globe. Thanks for that, MAGA. That's great. So it's just funny. It's funny that this group says, well, if you didn't, they're all for free speech, free choice, free will, unless it's not their will. Then it's a cheat. Then it's a grift. Fascinating. So if we look at this spiritually, you guys, spiritually, and this is why I laugh about this. If you look at it spiritually, what you've got a group of people who have been working so diligently since the 50s and 60s to kick off what's currently going on right now. The problem is that the earth, society, the spiritual and emotional temperate climate of this planet doesn't want this movement. And the funny thing is that these folks, you guys, they think they're doing God's work. They're so in their heads. When I look at them, there's no talking to them. There's no talking sense. It's their way or the highway. They are so in their own echo chambers. For generations, they've been in their own echo chambers, and they're not going to come out of it anytime soon. And the reason I'm giggling about this, even though I think that's sad for them, you guys, I'm giggling about it because it's like you finally have all the dandelion seeds in the world, and you're going to take over the croplands with all your dandelions and ruin it for everybody with your weeds. And you finally have what you need, and you go out to throw billions of dandelion seeds in the wheat field, and you look up from your bubble, and you look up from your microcosm, and you look up from your only way of viewing life to look at the field that you thought was there in front of you, but is now a paved over parking lot. So you throw your dandelion seeds out and they bounce off the pavement. And you just stare at it. And you say, well, wait a minute. There didn't used to be a parking lot here. Wait a minute. And that's what's going on, guys. They're trying to grow a tomato plant in concrete. You can't push this movement out during this current time frame. We're in the feminine time frame. I mean, they can try, but the feminine time frame is not an all or nothing time frame. It's not a one and done time frame. It's not the old world. We crossed out of that in 2012. So here we are, many, many, many years down the road, and we've got these folks who this is sort of the last run. They'll keep trying to push this through, but it's kind of the last run at this ideology of God and country and white people and Christianity and men run the house. And I just look at this and I'm thinking to myself, I do not understand women in the extreme right movement voting for this. But the thing that I do understand is a lot of those women have been indoctrinated to believe that they don't know any better and they need a man to guide them. So they are following how they've been raised. you know? And a lot of those women consider themselves incredibly progressive, and they're voting for the MAGA stuff because they think that MAGA is going to liberate the United States and give all the power back to the states, except for the fact that the Supreme Court keeps deciding what kind of power the states can have and can't have by saying, well, sure, we're gonna turn the abortion back to the states. But by the way, we're gonna say that the president is immune as long as he's in a presidential capacity, but we're not really going to define presidential capacity. I mean, this court is all over the place. And the reason why in the 1800s, the Supreme Court justice that was removed was because it was deemed that he had far too much political motivation in his decisions. And again, he later got instituted again into the court. But if we're dealing with the Supreme Court, they oftentimes rule on precedent. Well, obviously, this immunity thing with Trump is not being ruled on in precedent. They just kind of pulled that one out of their butt cracks. And mark my words, guys, Clarence Thomas is going down so hard. It honestly would not surprise me if Clarence Thomas decided, it would be sad, in my opinion, because nobody should go down this road. But it wouldn't surprise me if Clarence Thomas took his own life, because he is not going to be able to get out from underneath the string of, just data pointing to all the gifts and bribes that he has taken from all kinds of folks. And some they found is directly from Putin, So, the guy's in trouble. And I know I already predicted on that, but he is in trouble. So it'll be interesting to see how that all washes out for him. Although I'm looking down the pike and he is going to be asked to recuse himself or to leave and to retire, to step out or be impeached. And I'll tell you what, you guys, we've got a lot of Republicans who are breaking from this crazy party line that's going on. A lot of Republicans don't like the Christian nationalism. That's why I really, really, really encourage everybody not to decide that all Republicans are white nationalists. That's like saying all lefties are people who, are doing crazy things like chaining themselves to trees. And, that's not true. So as we go forward in this time frame, yes, Project 2025 is appalling. They've been wanting a version of that for years and years. Obviously, this brings us to President Biden, who is old. You guys, he's old. When I looked at President Biden's first term, he did not want to do 2 terms, okay? And the Democratic Party initially pushed him to run for a second term. And this is all stuff that some of it I know firsthand, and others of it that I'm just looking through the spiritual ethers at, okay? So he was pushed to run for a second term. He wanted to do 1 term and get the hell out of there. Well, now he's in it. Now he's going. He's making all of those gaffes that were pretty big. I watched some of them on YouTube and I was like, oh, buddy, that's not good. And they were so grievous and it was so weird to see Biden. And it wasn't entirely weird because he makes some errors, but this was pretty weird. The media jumped right onto it. And you're noticing even now, man, the Democrats are horrible when it comes to hysteria. I swear to God, the Republicans, they could run Donald Trump, which they're going to run Donald Trump. And although I do see some disruption at their convention of people who don't want to run Trump, so that's coming up. But now we're going to have disruption in the Democratic convention also of people who don't want to run Biden. And we have people like George Clooney getting up and telling Biden to step down and step aside, and he's a liability for the country. And, he's old, you guys. Biden is old, and he misspeaks. But he's got a handle on his brain when it comes to the country, and he's got a great group of people around him to help out. And I don't really have an opinion one way or the other whether he should stay there or step out. I'm just reporting to you guys that it was never his plan to go 2 terms anyway, and he was pushed to do it. So now he's doing it, and now the same overreactive Democratic Party is losing their minds and going, oh my gosh, should we take him out of there? Should it be Kamala Harris? Wait, she's not pulling all that great either. Do you know the biggest blue ticket right now? The biggest blue ticket that is polling that beats Trump and whoever he's going to pick. He hasn't even picked a running mate yet. It beats him by 5 to 7 points, this ticket, when they've pulled it across the board, is Hillary and Harris. That is the ticket that sinks Trump completely when they run it across the polls. And I don't think that old Hills, I look into Hillary Clinton and she's so damn mad from what happened in 2016 and what was allowed to happen and what nobody ever followed up on with all the voting machines that went weird in Iowa and Florida. Do you guys remember that? I know I talk about it on this podcast and I'm not trying to sound like a conspiratist. It wasn't a conspiracy. I was watching news broadcasts about people in Florida who went in and said that they were casting their vote for Hillary Clinton. And all of a sudden the screen just flickered for a second, but it flickered enough for them to see a dot by Donald Trump. And then it passed on and said, thanks for your vote. And you were done. And these people were reporting this to the poll workers, and the poll workers really didn't know what to do much about that. But it happened again. It happened in the states where he won by exactly 2%. So whatever. I mean, maybe that was just people making stuff up, walking out of the voting booth. Maybe they voted for Trump and they didn't want to fess to it. Who knows? But it is a little weird that he won exactly 2% in a couple of states that reported polling voting issues with the voting machines. And it was exactly 2% over the exit polls that had Hills winning. So now you got Biden, and, I look at Biden, and you guys, he has some 82-year-old cognitive hiccups once in a while. He does not have dementia. He's not going downhill. He has a stutter. He needs to slow way down to do things. I suppose that one could argue that's not the best for the president of the United States, but at the same time, the guy is not impulsive. He's not a sociopath. He's not crazy. He's not pushing a 2025 project agenda to make $5. And I mean, literally at this point, guys, it's not about Biden being a Democrat and Trump pretending to be a Republican. Trump's nothing. He's whatever he wants to be for himself. He was a Democrat for 35 years before he jumped ship to be a Republican. After insulting Republicans in the 80s and 90s and calling them the stupidest group of people he's ever heard of, and if he ever ran for president again, he would run as a Republican and talk about Jesus because, in quotes, they're so stupid they'll vote for Jesus. And that's what he did. And that's what's happening. I mean, he called these folks stupid. I mean, it's harsh. These are his own words, but they don't want to believe that. They believe that that's the deep fake media that's saying all these mean things about Donald Trump. The rough part about Donald Trump, you guys, is he's always been this guy. And I know I say this on podcasts, but I haven't talked to these folks in quite a while, but I had good friends in Los Angeles in the 2000s who worked on The Apprentice. And they would talk all the time about what a nightmare he was to work with. And he was just the exact same guy that we see every day on the news. They said he would lie. They said he would try to come on to chicks. They said he would pull fits and not want people to pay other people. And I mean, he would be exactly who he is, right? And that's when he was a Democrat. That's when he was backing Bill Clinton. I mean, he had backed heavily Bill Clinton's campaign. So, I mean, people just want to make Trump into whatever they need to make him into because people are afraid in this time frame, you guys. There's so many folks out there. Let me back up. Our Earth is struggling with the amount of people that are on it. Our Earth has resources for about 4 billion people max, and we're hitting 8 billion. We're coming up on 8 billion. So we've doubled the max capacity that the Earth can handle. Now, you got to remember that human beings are a collective species. We are an empathic species, and we are connected to the Earth, and we forgot how to live with the Earth. To quote John Dutton from Yellowstone, we've forgotten how to live with the Earth and started living on it, and that's a problem for the Earth. The Earth is a living being. So to have something, 8 billion of these little things scurrying around, or a good portion of them acting like they're not part of you, that sucks. So people, guys, my point is people. People can feel collectively in the ethers that we are at a pivotal point in our evolution as a species. People can feel it. They can't put their finger on it. It's an agitation. It's a fear. We are psychically and spiritually connected. We're Bluetoothed together through this giant spinning electromagnet called the Earth. And people are feeling the pressures of other people. The more people we add to the planet, guys, the more we will feel each other. Because the more people are adding to the planar array that's broadcasting collective thought. And if you're wondering what a planar array is, guys, it's, like when you see the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, and there's a big shot of the desert, and in the desert there are all these radar dishes, right? And all the radar dishes kind of rotate one direction or rotate the other direction at one time. That's a planar array. And the more radar dishes you have, the more you hear out in space, the bigger ear you have. So the more human beings that are on the Earth, the more connected we are, the more we feel the Earth, the more we feel collective consciousness, collective freak out. We feel the people struggling in Ukraine, over in Israel and Palestine. We feel the people who are being genocided upon in Africa. We feel the fear and the hand-wringing in the United States over, gee goodness, is Joe Biden going to be asked to step down? We feel it all. And when we as human beings feel all this stuff, guys, we're not really trained in our skin to say, oh, you know what? I bet I'm feeling the collective. Heck no, that's not where we go at all. We look to matrix a reason in our mind. We're looking for a concrete reason we can point our finger at and say, there, that's the problem. That's why I am upset. So people, though he is a con man, and though he is, in my observation, a bit of a sociopath and definitely a narcissist, when I look at him energetically, if you're to point your finger at Trump and say, you're the whole problem, you'd be incorrect. He's not the whole problem. He's a piece of the problem. If somebody's pointing at Biden and going, look, you old fool, you old doddering wacko, you need to step down, you're the problem. Well, that's not entirely correct. Yes, he has some serious problems right now, but he is not deficient mentally. He's just old. So, he's got old people gaffes, and that's not what we want to see in a president. We want to see somebody strong and well-spoken and all the things, and maybe they should be. I don't know. Or maybe they should be a calm, cool, collected, older guy that doesn't have an itchy trigger finger and is trying to prove how big his package is by smacking the world upside the head with it. Maybe that'd be a good idea too, So here we are in the feminine time frame to quickly recap. The sociological and spiritual and emotional ethers of this planet are not fertile planting ground for totalitarianism. You're throwing your seeds that you've collected all these years, totalitarians, onto the blacktop. They're just bouncing around everywhere. And then the totalitarian folks are staring at the blacktop and saying, that's fake. That's fake blacktop. There's really soil there. I swear to God, it's delusional, you guys. There is such a delusion. And it really is a call to all of us to not get too far into our echo chambers, guys. I know lots of my friends that are on the left that are so shocked that this could ever happen. These are folks who maybe lived their whole entire life in beautiful areas like Seattle or Los Angeles. And the culture is very accepting and very blue and very, hey, whatever. Get married, gay people. We don't care if you're black, orange, or green. Just everybody come. And that's the only environment these folks have lived in and are therefore stunned, scared, freaked out that there are folks in this country that wish all of the rest of us who are not just exactly like them to be dead. And maybe it's not such a surprise to me. As a gay person, I have not had the same kind of life as maybe somebody who's not gay. And I'm not saying it's bad or worse, and I'm not throwing my poor me card out there. I can tell you that I've marched in pride parades back in the day, in the 90s, and had people throwing beer in my face and spitting on me and saying I'm an abomination and I should go to hell. And I've had people shove me around. And I remember marching at Pride in Seattle before the Pink Panthers, who are the gay guys running around as security, broke it up. But there was a group of yahoos up in the park, volunteer park in the 90s. And, we were letting out, the parade was letting out there, 100,000 people in gay pride in the 90s in Seattle. And this group of guys came in wearing cross t-shirts and were, they all looked like flat top very scary, the idea of like a drill sergeant type of person. And they started walking up to women couples and surrounding them and screaming at them and yelling at them and telling them how they were going to hold them down and F them and make them straight. And they just needed a good dick. And, and I was one of those people that they were yelling at. And I just started laughing. It was so stupid. These terribly frightened men who were like 6'5", screaming in my face, spitting in my face, literally kind of spit. Long before the Hawk Tua girl made it to the headlines, there was Hawk Tua that was on people back in the day. And so, I understand that not everybody's going to like me. Okay? Now, I'm a white woman, and I always say I can't imagine what it would have been like if I was a black gay woman. Now let's all add extra hatred on top of the pile. So it didn't shock me entirely that there's Project 2025 people out there in the world. That was made real clear to me when I was 20, 21 years old. It was sad, it was weird, but it was also really funny because I thought, God, these men are afraid of me. Why are these guys so afraid of me? And then the Pink Panthers would run across and tweet their whistles. And the Pink Panthers were huge. They were 6'8". So here they come running across Volunteer Park, tweet, tweet, tweet. And these guys would run off like little bitches. They would take off. They weren't going to stand there and get into a fight with guys their size. They were going to surround women and, say terrible things to them. It was so stupid. And I remember drinking some microbrew and just watching this go down and being like, shit, this asshole just spit in my beer. This beer was like $5. In the 90s, man, and I was a poor musician. That's what I was most mad about, was that asshole wrecked my beer, man. I had no money back then. Anyway, my point is, guys, that if you're out there hand-wringing, you're adding to the hysteria. So please stop. Please stop. I understand that there's a lot of us out there who were not aware that there were this many people who crave totalitarianism. And why do they? Why do they crave that? Guys, for generations in America and beyond, there have been people that have been literally bred and raised to believe that they cannot make a decision. That's literally part of a lot of the hardcore Christian churches, some extremist Christian churches' dogma, is that you can't think for yourself. You need God and a man appointed by God to think for you, or you will lead yourself astray. So it's not just like somebody woke up one day and was like, wow, I think I'd like all my rights taken away. That sounds like a good plan. I think I'll vote for that con man guy. That sounds like a good plan. No, these are generationally cultivated opinions. And so this is why if you're online and you have a friend or a family member who believes that Project 2025 is a great idea, and I've only seen a few people online who have the cojones to say that they think it's a great idea. A couple of the people I've seen go off about how great Project 2025 is are people in their 60s, they're women, and they believe that they want to believe in Santa Claus, you guys. They want to believe in the white knight that's going to come save them, some beautiful man on the white horse. They want to believe that Jesus and God and country and apple pie is real. And they're just tuning out the most horrible portions of Project 2025 to sculpt it into Santa Claus that is God and country and apple pie and all their idealism. And they're not seeing it for what it is. They're just not seeing it. They're seeing that parking lot as a fertile field and so just confounded why those seeds are bouncing off of the concrete. So if we can understand why this is why is it happening with these women in their 60s and some of them in their 50s and some of them in their 30s? Why is this happening? Because that's how they were taught. And a lot of people, let's go back to the earth. I was talking about 8 billion of us being on the planet. People are needing a safe zone, a safety space. Because people can feel the planet stressed out. We can feel our water drying up. We can feel our food drying up. We can feel financial stretching in this greed wall that everybody's calling inflation. And that makes me mad. It's not inflation, you guys. I look at it spiritually, economically. Yes, technically prices are inflated, but they're inflated because of greed, not because of supply chain issues and all these other things way back in 2021, maybe, but not now. So we've got we've got a lot of afraid people, guys. And the more there are, I'm going to recap, the more there are of us on the planet, the more we're going to feel the fear. Now, we're not going to know why exactly we feel this fear. It's just this low-grade chronic anxiety. You know what I'm talking about? Right? Right? And it's been happening since 2016. And it's just, for a while it was a wall of it, and now it's just ramping up and it's ramping up. So the more people we get on the planet, the more planar array we have to pass around the collective feeling that is predominant in that time frame. And right now, people are freaked the F out right now, guys. They're freaked out. But not for the reasons we think they are. So let's go back to the Democrats. We've got all these Democrats hand-wringing over Biden. And like I said, full transparency, I tend to be a left-leaning voter. I am so disgusted with the mealy cowardice in the corporate Democratic Party, and I am so disgusted with the mealy cowardice in the corporate Republican Party. And not only do I read about it, you guys, not only do I have friends in both political systems and both political parties that are in government, but you guys, spiritually and psychically, when I look into it, there are heads of both parties that are so terrified to speak out because they don't want to lose their job. They like their benefits. They like their 6 figures. They fundraise to be able to pay their salaries. And yes, some of that goes to candidates, but a lot of it goes to the salaries of organizers. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot of folks out there who don't want to rock that boat because they don't want to lose that job. That's called playing to the system, not being a civic servant. And I understand you can't just go in there like a wrecking ball, you guys. I mean, you can't do that. That's not reality. However, as a blue voter, as a left-leaning voter, I am disgusted by the mealiness that I see in the Democratic Party. And I apologize if this term I'm going to use offends everybody, but I'm just being honest with you. I came up with the term a few years back for the Democratic Party when I was watching them support Hillary until Barack Obama, back in 2008, came up and was doing so well and made such a stink and had the following of a lot more youthful vote and was a lot more splashy and fabulous than old Hales. I love Hillary Clinton, you guys. I know a lot of you don't, but psychically, when I look into that lady, she is something. And she's put up with a lot of crap. And so I realized that old Hills wasn't going to be nearly as sparkly as Obama. And what did the Democrats do? They do what the Dems do. They dropped her like a hot potato overnight, and it was all about Obama. And it wasn't really a very gracious drop. It wasn't a really gracious crossfade. It was pretty raunchy. It just like she didn't exist, and all the Dems became fanboys and fangirls and ran after Barack. Well, he was fabulous, so that worked out. But I've said for a long time that the Democrats are too flighty. They're again, I hope this term doesn't offend everybody to the moon and back, but literally, have you ever heard the term starfucker? Do you know what that is? When I was actually, back in the day when I was much more of a celebrity and did celebrity things, I learned that term. And it was the people, you could think of them as a groupie, really. But it's worse than a groupie. It's like somebody that would divorce their husband just for a chance to have sex with the rock star. I mean, they'd throw their whole life away just for a shot to be the starfucker. And it was a statement on capriciousness. It was a statement about a lack of commitment, about how someone considered their own, sense of self would be raised if they were in the presence of this famous person. So I've noticed that politically, the Democratic Party is just big star effers, and they run after the new star and they drop like a hot potato, whoever may not poll properly. And in complete pancake flip, you've got the Republican Party. And to their detriment, I mean, they will vote for the same old decaying log in the swamp over and over again because, by God, that is the person they are loyal to. So we kind of need to take a few drops of that loyalty and a few drops of that flexibility and really make decisions that way instead of, well, we're going to vote for the felon or we're going to drop Biden in a second for whoever we decide is hotter on TikTok, says the Democrats. I mean, it's embarrassing. And yes, you guys, I am not saying that Biden doesn't have a lot of problems. And quite frankly, I am not the biggest Biden fan. I will vote for a fire hydrant if it's not Trump, though. Okay? Is the fire hydrant kind? Does it give water when you open it up? Is it doing its job as a hydrant? Bam! Fire hydrant. Check. Yep. So, because I can see down the hill, guys, the ramifications of a Trump presidency. And at this time, unless the Supreme Court, and I'm not putting it past them, at this time, unless the Supreme Court rules against states' electoral officials and upholds cries of election fraud in different states and gives the election to Donald Trump, he doesn't win. And that's, of course, predicated on the fact that we're all voting. You know, I know a lot of people that just thought Hillary Clinton would win, and they just kind of didn't like her all that much, so they just didn't vote because they figured other people would. And, of course, the margins were so close with Hillary and Trump that you could go in there and wiggle votes. You could go in there and have magic voting machines because the margins were so close. If we go in there and everybody votes for Biden, Joe Blow, the fire hydrant, the apple that's running against Trump, the metrics are too large to noodle with those types of numbers. You can noodle with metrics, guys, when they're close, which is why Trump was trying to get back votes. He was like, hey, go find me 11,000 votes, because when you're that close, those are easier numbers to wiggle. So if you don't want a totalitarian America, vote for whoever is not running or whoever is not Trump. Okay. If you want a totalitarian America, you vote for Trump. And if you think voting for Trump, you guys, is going to exclude the types of horrors that they're actually talking about, I'm sorry, but that's not true. He's a grifter. He's going to stand to one side while these crazy people who have been gunning for years and years to take over the country, run the country. And he'll just step up there and make his money and wag a Bible around and run off to Russia. I mean, he doesn't care. So the hard part is that I don't believe that Joe Biden is Santa Claus. I believe he's got a lot of problems, but I believe he's a very good person and he's trying. I don't know what kind of person Donald Trump is because he's so busy in the con, I can never tell where his heart's at. So I don't know what kind of person he is. However, I can tell you that he is not what you're getting if you vote for president. You're getting this think tank thing that's been gunning since the 60s to be in control of the United States of America. So, if we all get out there and most people vote, it is not looking, unless there's a big assist from the Supreme Court, that Trump has any shot at this. And I think Trump knows that. And I think that's why the court is, I know that's why the court is dropping these crazy decisions like Roe v. Wade and, the president can do whatever they want, just to see how America reacts to it. So if they start overturning state electors' decisions, or turning it back to the state, or forcing state to have election after election until the state is bankrupt. I sure hope they don't do that, you guys, but something is really, really wrong with Clarence Thomas, okay? I don't know if he's just been such an angry person for a long time, or something is off there, guys, with him in his head. And he is an angry man with a big-ass vendetta. And he's displacing his anger and his rage. And Alito is just, again, he's one of those people trying to take a bunch of, dandelion seeds and spread them out on a parking lot and grow a crop. He's so in his own little world that he's just going and voting and whatever. Brett Kavanaugh, I think if really, really, really pressed against the law, he is an Aquarius, if I'm not mistaken. And I think if he was really pressed, I don't think he would fall in lockstep. Amy Coney Barrett has voted in lockstep, but with extreme dissent on a couple of the issues. So I think she's kind of separating herself at this point. But the fact is, you guys, we've got to be present and show up and be part of our democracy, okay? And there's a lot of folks who are going to vote for Trump. There's a lot of folks who are going to vote for Biden, even though they think he's a doddering zombie, because folks don't want the Trump baggage. The Trump train, guys, Trump isn't even, he's not even the engine on the Trump train, okay? Trump is like a car just getting pulled along somewhere on the Trump train. You know, the engine are these right-wing think tanks that have been just churning his campaign this whole entire time. And he's just in the middle eating caviar, drinking champagne, waiting to get to where he's going for his next grift, you know. And that's not good for him either. Because at the end of the day, if he doesn't play ball with this group of people who really does believe they're the right hand of God for justice on the earth right now, that's your Heritage Foundation folks and other groups, they'll get rid of him too. That's the funny thing about totalitarians, guys. You think you're white and Christian and on their team until you're not. Until you do the one thing that puts you in the us against them category and you're a them. You know, I think about the Nazis and how everybody just kind of turned a blind eye to them at first because it could never happen. And then it did. And I don't think we have a blind eye in this country, but there are things that are going down that are crazy. Yet the reason that people are clinging to politics to try to make sense out of all of this is because, honestly, it's because of this overwhelming collective consciousness that's flexing right now that realizes that we're on a planet whose resources are being limited. And we don't want to look at that, you guys. It's easier to look at Biden and Trump. You know, it's easier to look at a savior who's going to save us all. That one guy will save us. That one lady in France, she'll save us. Well, that's not going to happen. So we have to all be present. And the one thing I would tell you out there, if you are somebody who supports Donald Trump, okay, I'm not going to try to change your mind on that. You just might want to look into the Heritage Foundation. And if you think it's fine, I guess I don't really know what to say. I guess you want to live in a different kind of the United States than I do. If you're someone out there and you're wringing your hands as a Dem and you want to dump Biden and get everything, you want to go to the next awesome person. And can we just take a breath, guys? Can we just take a breath? You know, there is, again, I never saw Joe Biden running for a second term. So when he put in for this second term, I was shocked. I was like, what does he know that we don't know? What does the world stage know that we don't know that benefits from having the same president for 8 years? And of course, there's conspiracy folks out there that are like, oh, he's part of the deep state. It's just more of the deep state. I'm like, really? Do you really think the deep state, you guys, would run somebody for president who's making that many errors on television? That's a pretty crappy deep state. I would think the deep state would have somebody else in mind who was a little more savvy, but whatever. The whole point is, you guys, we need to calm the hell down. And we need to recognize that what we're really stressing out about is the future of our planet and humanity's future on the planet. That's where all this stress is coming from. And if all of us just pay a little attention while we're brushing our teeth and don't run the water the whole time and turn it on and off and conserve some water, we will help the planet. Okay? If all of us don't just go through 5,000 plastic straws, and, you know, I mean, we all get a plastic straw once in a while, most of us, but if we try our best not to and try to cut back a little bit, that'll help the planet. You know, if we're doing what we can in recycling, that'll help the planet. If we volunteer and go pick up some trash off the beach, that'll help the planet. If we start being part of the planetary assistance, that will help everything. You know, it will help everything. And so, honestly, I feel as though this matrixing and projecting of politics in America and the white nationalists, man, they're making it all about Jesus. And if they can just control it all, then we'll be fine. You know, they're going to run out of water too. So that's going to be tough for them. And I'll tell you what, you really don't want to be the administration who is president when you all run out of water. That's going to be not fun for anybody. So, guys, you know, the overarching message of this podcast is that there's a lot of fear going on right now. And if we can do our part to not be reactive little guinea pigs freaking around in the cage, jumping up and down just because somebody walked by and banged our cage, that will help the ethers, because you and I are affecting people we've never met. You know, all the folks out there who have their hippocampus just triggered like crazy by people who are trying to control them, and that's the fear center of the brain, with crazy stuff about the deep state and this and that and the other thing, and they're just hammering. They're getting their hippocampus hammered on Fox News and on all these things. They're reacting, and they're barfing all of this hysteria into the ethers, and everybody is collectively picking it up and needing to matrix a reason it's happening. It must be Trump or Biden. Instead of, wow, there's a lot of afraid people. On the left, we've got people wringing their hands and going out of their mind and, oh my God, I'm, again, don't be the star fucker who's a Democrat. Don't do it. Oh my God, the one bad performance and now we made another gaffe and it's all now Trump's going to win. Really? Really? Because that hysteria is just hitting the ethers too. And that's affecting everybody as well, you guys. And I would posit to you that if Trump was going to win again, he would have won in 2020 when he was president. Honestly. I mean, he lost as the incumbent, you guys. Do you think that 80 million people are just not going to vote for Joe Biden now? Do you think that those 80 million people are going to be like, well, he had one bad debate performance and he's getting old, so Trump it is for me? You guys, let's be logical about this. There are so many people out there that don't want a totalitarian America. And quite frankly, for a con man, Donald Trump played this one wrong, man. If he wanted to be president, he should have gone more moderate. But he was looking for the money, and his obsessed followers throw every penny they have at him. That's why he went this way. Trump probably could have won, you guys, if he would have never backed Project 2025. If he would have gotten out there and said, you know what, you guys, I learned a lot from being president last time, and I'll tell you what we do need to do in this country? We need to let people marry who they want. We need to let whoever wants to have an abortion who they want. But let's get you your tax dollars back. Let's get our business. Let's make America great again. He would have won. But that wouldn't get him the individual swag that he's trying to sell. Wouldn't get him the dollars. He's looking for the dollars. So anyway, I remember looking into the ethers and seeing Hillary Clinton win over Trump. And she won the popular vote. She sure did, and was not going to be allowed to ascend to the presidency. And even though Barack Obama in 2014 was screeching about how Russia had developed all kinds of really advanced cyber attacks on our voting system, and now we're quite, I guess, fortified against a lot more of that now. Nothing happened with all that. And so she did not ascend to the presidency. She didn't get through. She didn't get voted in. And I look at this and I'm hesitant to say that, well, Trump can't make it, because if the Supreme Court gets in there and says, sure you can, then he's going to be president. What I would tell you is the hearts of people out there, a majority of people, there's lots of people that want to vote for Trump. They really believe in his message. There's a majority of people that are more temperate than his message, that aren't even Democrats, that don't really want that extremist government, so they're not going to vote for him. And the only reason Trump leaned in was for the money. So, I've had a lot of you ask about Kennedy. What's Kennedy going to do? And when I look ahead, Kennedy is siphoning off more votes from the Republicans than he is the Democrats. There are a few Dems that are going to go and vote for Kennedy. Most of the votes that are being cast for Kennedy are coming from the conservative folks, because they just think Trump's a wacko, and they're looking for somebody who's a little less extreme. And so they can't bring themselves to vote for Biden, and off they go. So we're in a very fascinating time frame of watching extremism die out. And this is something in 2023 and 2022 I talked a lot about. Remember that? I talked all about how in 2024, we were going to watch extremism die out. Extreme right, extreme left, extreme, extreme. Guys, we got to come to the middle of the scale. We got to have some balance. It doesn't mean we have to agree with everybody, and it doesn't mean we have to believe what everybody else believes. We've just got to strike a balance and calm the F down a minute. Calm down from the grand hysteria of getting your hippocampus triggered, either through what's going to happen with Biden or, oh my God, the deep state is taking over everything. Calm down. Just calm down. What you're actually worried about is an overtaxed planet. And it's matrixing itself out into the political races all over the world. This is why we're seeing authoritarians rise all over the place. Is because people are fearing the unknown with our survival on this planet, guys. And subconsciously, people are looking for that one person who's just got the answer and going to save us. You know, about 18 months ago, I had some folks approach me about running for some political offices. And I really considered it heavily, but I'm moving actually in Montana, so it's going to take me out of one county and put me into another county. So that would have been weird. I would have had to step down my seat if I won in this county when I moved. So I was just like, well, that's not going to work right now. However, one of the things that these folks said to me is, you know, we really think you would be a great candidate because you can get people to follow you, is what they said. And it kind of freaked me out because these were left-leaning people that were saying this to me. You can get people to follow you. And I said to them, I don't want people to follow me. I want them to follow themselves. And I am happy to walk in the front with a great big lantern, but we all need to make a great big line right to left. And we all need to carry a lantern so everybody else knows where to bring their lantern. They need to walk beside me, not behind me. You know, and so our ideas of what we're looking for is so desperate right now. There's such a desperation in people to find the leader. You have the answer. And why? Because, guys, biologically, we are feeling our resources stressed out. And do we have a shot at maintaining some of those resources and getting some of them back? Well, yes, we do. Yes, we do. But we got to calm down to do it because we are stoking the fires of the collective consciousness in a very hysterical way, and it's not helping anything. So if you want some tools, you know, and how to chill out with all of that, just relax. Get off the media if you need to. I'm a little disgusted, and I'll kind of leave the podcast on this. I'm a little disgusted with some of our news outlets. And, you know, I'm looking at the MSNBCs, the CNNs, and you've got these. Let me back it up. If I'm a news organization and you're an advertiser and you advertise with me on Danielle Network, every single time somebody comes in to my thread online to read a news story and, you know, your advertising is on that, every time somebody scrolls past the news story, you know how there's ads in the middle of a news story and you scroll down past them? Every time you scroll past that ad, then say you're the, you know, advertiser, you have to give me a little bit of money. It's called an impression. You have to give me a little bit of money, even if the person didn't read the ad. They scrolled past it, so they could have seen it. So you've got to give Danielle Network some money. Now, if by chance somebody accidentally clicks on those ads because they make it look like it's the extension of the article, right? So you click the ad, then you as the advertiser have to give me even more money at the Danielle Network. So what's going on is MSNBC and CNN or whatever are learning that if they post, hey, guess what? Donald Trump is crazy. Nobody cares anymore because everybody knows Donald Trump is crazy. You know, oh, Donald Trump lied. Oh, really? Did he? No way. You know, nobody's clicking on that anymore. Those ads, those advertisers aren't drawing the money. The hysterical Dems, on the other hand, when they post things like George Clooney calls for Biden to step down, or, you know, right after the debate, they were posting, you know, Dems questioning whether Biden should be in or not. There were like 2 or 3 Dems that were questioning that, and these news sources made it sound like the whole party had pitchforks and knives and were going after old Joe Biden. And they did that because the traffic to those clicks was insane, you guys. So now all you see is Biden, 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 and what a train wreck he is because they're all looking for money from the advertisers. That's all this is about, is greed. Now, I'm not saying he didn't make a mistake. I'm not saying people aren't talking about replacing him. But the more they put out these message of people talking about replacing him, the more people are like, oh, are we replacing him? Well, maybe we should replace him. So it's this weird self-fulfilling prophecy. And whether they do or don't is not my issue here. It's that the reason it's happening is because of money. Money. You know, the greed in this time frame is so out of control. And that's another reason why we're collectively crying on this planet. It's not just inflation in the United States, guys. You talk to anybody from Canada, Europe, everybody's going broke. Nobody can afford anything. So the whole point here is, if you want to change the world, calm down. If you want to change the world, be far less reactive. If you want to change the world, bring your messages of peace into your community. Do things that don't allow your hippocampus to be triggered, you guys. Plant a garden. Get back out to nature. Go invite a bunch of friends over and watch some goofy movies from the 80s. I'm not telling you to isolate yourself. I'm not telling you to insulate yourself. I'm not telling you to ignore what's happening. I'm telling you to not be subject to the hysteria breeding of what's happening for money. Don't do it. It's all for money. Nothing, there are things that are dire. Project 2025 is dire. These wackos that want to go back a million years in our country are dire. But all you got to do is just not vote for that, guys. Okay? That's as easy as it gets. In the meantime, get out there and show your love to your friends and your neighbors and stop digging in and causing a war. It's not going to help anything. It adds to the collective hysteria. And yeah, there's some things to be kind of concerned about right now. We can keep an eyeball on them without becoming them. God, you guys, even Jesus said, be in the world, not of the world. You can be aware of what's going on. You don't have to let it own you. Because at the end of the day, we are a collective species. We are all wanting the same thing, which is safety, provision, prosperity, love, equality. A lot of people have some different definitions of those things. But if we can focus on the love part, guys, and we just calm down and we vote where we vote, I'm telling you, you cannot grow a wheat crop on a tennis court. So all of this hysteria is hitting finally with its big shot, its big authoritarian, totalitarian, white Christian nationalism chance is coming at a time when now everything's covered in concrete. So good luck with that, you guys. You insulated weirdos. God. I do not understand the need to control others, everybody. I have a hard enough time controlling myself. So there you go. Hopefully this has given you all the information you've been asking me about, guys. I appreciate you all so much. I appreciate your emails and your texts and your messages through social media wanting this podcast. We've gone a little over here today, quite a bit over actually, but hopefully this gets the information out to you. And, just be aware when you cast your vote, what you're voting for. And a lot of people I know that are voting for Trump, they're like, well, I know exactly what I'm voting for. I'm voting for freedom. Okay. Very interesting definition of freedom. All right, guys. Well, you all take care, okay? No matter who you're voting for, we are all collective and we are all part of the love solution. So if we can get into that space in our heart, then we do live in America. You're allowed to vote for who you want. So let's just make sure we're staying in the love place, and I think it will make that answer pretty clear in the end. All right, guys. I appreciate everybody's letters. I appreciate everybody's reaching out. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your July. Take care until next podcast.